Yo, what's up, YouTube? It is your friendly neighborhood TV nerd. I'm riding solo today. Well, only for a few minutes. Let me explain. So, welcome to the first ever episode of No NPCs Allowed. If you can't think for yourself, if you can't act for yourself, and if you can't do exactly what you want to do, then you are not allowed here because there are no NPCs allowed on this show. But what is No NPCs Allowed? Let me explain. No NPCs Allowed is a show where me, the TV nerd, or Chris, whatever you want to go by, I don't take offense to multiple titles, will be discussing my love for something we haven't really been able to do on the channel yet, which is video games. So while we're speaking about the channel, that is Talkin TV. If you're here right now, you know it. But have you subscribed? Have you smashed that like button? Have you turned on that bell for notifications to see when we put videos up, which is every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday? Have you done that? Because it would really help us out, and it would really mean a lot, and we would appreciate you doing that. So please be sure to subscribe, smash that like button, turn on that bell for notifications right down there below. That's Talkin TV. But today, this is No NPCs Allowed. This is the show where I dissect my love for video games, and what better way to start off than to start with retro gaming? We're going to define what retro gaming is today. We're going to talk about our favorite retro games, and I'm not going to do it alone. We're going to bring in one of my best friends here on YouTube. This dude has been a wealth of knowledge. This dude has been so kind, has been so imparting of knowledge to help our channel grow and get off the ground, and we've kind of like talked around the idea of our love of video games, but we haven't really ever fully explored it. So this is like a first time for me too, guys, that we didn't have any pre-meeting on this. We didn't sort of say like, oh, cool, so like let's talk about this now and figure out exactly what we want to talk about. No, this is, and No NPCs Allowed is always going to be a natural conversation, as is everything that Dom and I do here on this channel. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, humans, for that matter, please allow me to introduce the one and only David of Flix Talk. David.
Hey, what's going on, man? It's good to be here. Really, really good to be here. How you doing?
Dude, I'm doing great, man. I'm excited. You know, new things are exciting, and I really hope people enjoy this show. I know it's something a little different for our channel, but it's something I've always wanted to do. And you know, we were talking a little bit before the stream started about like, you know, positive strategies for your channel and just sort of like shooting the shit, just exchanging ideas. Yeah. And I do think you have to chase some of the more hot button topics. Like, for example, this coming Wednesday on our channel, we'll be putting up our Project Power review. I know you just hit that as well. And I think it is a glorified CW TV show squashed into a movie, but that is a topic for another day.
Yeah.
But, you know, sometimes you just got to do what feels right in here, you know, in your heart, man. And I love video games. It might be what I do the most. Don't tell Dom in my leisure time. I think I play a lot of games. So I know you're a big retro gamer, and I know that you kind of have also stayed in the retro gaming realm. You haven't really gone too far forward. So I think if I'm doing a show about video games first, you got to establish the tone. You got to establish the history. So what better way than to talk about retro gaming? So David, why don't you just first off introduce your channel and then sort of jump into what it is about retro gaming you love, your first, you know, experience with it, and kind of like we'll get through the why. Hopefully you chose to only stay with the retro gaming. But I love your shirt, man.
Hey, thank you, man. Hey, life of the party since 1985.
There you go.
Yeah, man. I do love retro gaming. It's a huge part of my growing up. Obviously, I'm a product of the 80s, you know. So, little background on myself before I get into, you know, the shameless promotion of my channel. But a little background on myself growing up. My dad was and still is a computer tech IT, and you know, so around the house, man, as far back as I can remember, ages 3, 4. And my dad was always working on computers. He had a setup at the house and stuff like that. So once video gaming became really big in the late 80s, he picked up a Nintendo, and you know, he had a friend down the street who used to subscribe to Nintendo Power magazine. You remember that?
I do.
Man, and every time the guy would finish the magazine, he would be like, "Can I borrow it? Can I borrow it for me and my son?" Boom. And we would look at all the tips and tricks, the stuff coming up, all the news about Nintendo. So I was a huge Nintendo head starting off. And my dad had me playing, I think the first game was the combo pack of Duck Hunt and Super Mario Brothers. That I think is the cartridge that most people had, you know, the duel. And we also had the gun to play with the Duck Hunt. So I do remember that fondly. But I think more than that game, the biggest game that was a huge part of my childhood was the Adventures of Link 2, the gold disc. For some reason, I think that came out in '87. I want to say. We were always playing that, and my dad had me up to all hours of the night trying to beat that game. It's one of the hardest games, and I'm still playing it on emulator, and I cannot get past like certain levels. It's
So
just
you were a bit of a floppy disk gamer?
No. Cartridge. We were straight up doing cartridges.
Okay. So
Yeah,
I just,
yeah. We were not,
I know a little bit about that. I had the Super Nintendo as a hand-me-down from my uncle, and I started, I guess, my first console that I had reached out and asked for was the Nintendo 64. I knew about Nintendo Power, but I've never seen one. And I had Game Informer, which I guess was like my generation's
that's
sort of Nintendo Power type thing.
Pretty much Nintendo Power.
But not to cut you off. I just didn't know if you were like of that floppy disk generation or if you were like console gaming back in the day.
Actually, I was both. I was really both. Like I said, my dad's a IT computer guy, so we always had computers in the house. He was someone that always believed in never buying your computers, as they were from the, well, back then it wasn't even Best Buy; it was Circuit City, man. You remember that Circuit City? So, or the other
rest in peace, man.
Yeah, these other electronic stores. And he was always a proponent of building your own PCs. So he would literally show me as a child, the ins and outs, the motherboard, where the RAM goes, where your CPU goes, where everything, hard drive goes.
Oh, that's cool. I'm sure you've built many PCs in your life.
Yeah.
Then.
Yeah. I mean, I'm getting lazy as the years go on, and I'll buy the bare bones kit as it is, and then I'll just build from there, right? Obviously adding more RAM or, installing my own graphics cards and whatnot. But yeah, so that's where I kind of got my love for tech. And then that kind of incorporated a lot of PC games. So I do remember playing the original Doom, the original Duke Nukem. I'm trying to think. There was so many games, even learning games. You remember those learning games, like where you would hit the keyboard, like the different letters, and it would. I don't know if you had that.
I don't.
Sometimes they would let you even play it in schools, like where it was like a learning typing game. So it was like it would almost monitor how fast you were typing, but it was also a video game. So like you hit A, and then the person would jump, like the little sprite would jump from, pad to pad or whatever, lily pad or whatever it is. And you hit another letter.
Right. Your stuff.
Come on. So yeah, you're hitting these keys, and it became like a game, but you're also learning to type really, really fast. And those brain games were just, they always stuck with me. And, I've gotten a little slower in my keystrokes, just due to just working with my hands so much. But yeah, that's where it kind of started from. But I do remember my introduction to Nintendo, just staying up all hours of the night. My mom would even come in saying, like, you still have him up, like, playing this damn game, like she was it was like a sitcom, like just pop in her head, like Kramer, and just like, you still playing this damn game, and but yeah, for like a 4-year-old kid, man, playing that was it. That was everything. I loved it.
Dude, I love that, man. That's exactly kind of the first sentiment that I want to have start the show off, because I myself am sort of the Nintendo 64 generation by just when I was born, but I think I was very lucky in the sense that I did get this hand-me-down Super Nintendo, because while I do have a lot of very fond memories of playing both the Pokemon Stadium games, James Bond GoldenEye, which is awesome. Were you in a Super Nintendo N64 guy?
Mm-hmm. That's
okay.
We'll talk about that, but that's towards the end where I started to. I was getting older, and I started kind of not falling out of love, but I didn't keep up with it as much as I did girls and music. So I had to kind of put those on the back burner. But yeah, no, I have a little brother, and like we were talking, he does live in New York too, and he was part of that generation as well. The PS1, PS2 generation. I had the PS1 as well, but around that time, what was it, like the late '90s, early 2000s, is when I started to phase out a little bit, I guess, the consoles.
No, I hear that. I mean, like I definitely had a phase in my life. I'd say from like 17 to like from like more like all throughout high school, I kind of stopped playing games. But then just like 1 year for Christmas, my grandma, like, I guess, still wanted to get me something, even though I was a little older, didn't know what to get me, and she just bought me an Xbox One. And I was like, okay, I have it now. I guess I'll get back into video games. But I totally had that, like, if I never play another video game again, I have fond memories with them moment.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I'm glad she did, because hey, we wouldn't be here right now if she didn't. So with
Exactly.
that being said, though, man, like, I was born in 94,
Mhm.
but a lot of my fondest memories come out with games that are a little bit older than that. So like I have a really, really old memory of me playing the Jurassic Park Super Nintendo game that was released on October 1st, 1993. Do you remember that game?
I do remember that game, man. That was I kind of remember that being a hard one too. I got to go
It
back
was
on my
difficult. I wanted to ask you if it was just because I was like 2 years old or if
whatever
it was actually difficult. I remember
I
like
think it
my
was.
dad and I sitting down playing it. He had to sort of help me like
Yeah.
get through certain parts because I couldn't figure out. But I loved dinosaurs when I was like a little kid, and
Mhm.
Jurassic Park obviously was right up that alley. So I have like a really fond memory of that game and also those TMNT Super Nintendo games, those side scrollers,
Yeah, the
bro.
Turtles in Time. I mean,
Yes,
even the
dude.
OG, just the TMNT, the one on Nintendo, that was such a fun game. It was it's these are the things with the older retro games. They have a repetition. I don't think it's like any of these newer games where certain situations, sometimes scenes can be different, right? Especially when you're playing with other people. It's not a repetitive thing where you know what's going to happen next. With these older games, it became an addictive nature because, okay, you played this level before, so you know when to jump at the right time exactly. You know when you're going to be hanging off the cliff right there at the edge. You know the certain spots. You know where the hidden, wall breaks are. You know a lot of different things because it's a repetitive motion. And shoot, if I'm going maybe a little too far off the rails, but I think this probably led to a lot of child ADD, if anything. And I mean, paying
Well,
attention to detail.
it certainly was, our sort of generations were the first to be exposed to this kind of like imagery and thought process at such an early age,
Yeah.
So I'm no scientist, nor do I claim to be, but I think there might be something there. And,
Either way, it was fun.
it's so crazy, man, to see how when video games first came out, everyone was willing to write them off. Oh, it's not going to go anywhere. And now it's literally the biggest uh moneymaker in the entertainment industry.
Oh,
It's
well,
the number one moneymaker in the entertainment industry. It's past movies, it's past music, it's past television.
mhm.
It's the Titan right now. I mean,
Yeah.
look at Twitch. They get like network numbers, incredible network numbers every day. I mean, multiple networks combined couldn't touch their viewership.
Yeah,
So,
we were talking about this a little earlier. Even on YouTube, I mean, those are the ones that get the most views, right? Is all these. I mean, just a month ago, PewDiePie, one of the biggest channels on the planet, over 100 million subscribers, signed an exclusive deal to do live stream with YouTube. Now, out of all the streaming services, he chose YouTube because that's his home and that's where he's built with a fan base. So now he does a lot of live stream, gaming, and
mhm.
I think he just did yesterday a stream with Doctor Disrespect, who's
Yep.
huge on Twitch. So it's
And there's
like,
some controversy around that right now too.
oh
I
really?
believe I believe
I
he
don't
recently
controversy.
got kicked off of Twitch for something, violating
That,
some rules or something like that.
yeah, I follow a couple podcasts that were talking about that. I don't
So,
know exactly what he did to get kicked off. I know he's a controversial guy. I know why he got
yeah.
initially kicked
It's
off.
the
Or
character he plays is what I heard because apparently off screen when he does
yeah.
interviews as himself and not Dr. Disrespect, I guess he didn't do a good enough job of letting Twitch know he's playing a character. I don't know
Mm,
too much about that, but I was like, that's bold because I
that's
knew about that deal that PewDiePie struck with YouTube. And he
yeah.
brings on this very controversial guy in the gaming community going after Twitch who has like, the hold on the market and they're playing like video games like it's just a normal Twitch stream.
I
That was
know.
very bold.
That's crazy, but that's going to generate so much for YouTube, a platform that's not necessarily known for gaming. I mean, we've seen this year Facebook is getting into gaming, Facebook Gaming, which they're pretty much implementing all the different aspects of Twitch, right? But gaming is a hot commodity right now, and it's no, I like the way it's going. I mean, I wish I wouldn't see it as much because I can't really relate to the modern gaming, but that's why I'm glad we are
Mhm.
talking retro gaming, and it's funny because I think maybe 3 or 4 months ago, I did like try out a beta testing episode, just on emulator, trying to incorporate more movies. And I'll probably do this because you're giving me the hype right now, the motivation, the fire between, behind my back, to start recording again, just episodes. I did a old Sonic the Hedgehog because Sonic the Hedgehog was coming out on Blu-ray. So around that time, and 4K. Around that time that it was releasing, I wanted to do a Sonic the Hedgehog, just kind of quick playthrough, like 30-minute type of deal. But yeah, you're giving me the itch again to start up again. I don't know.
You know what, man? We should try and figure out if we can do like a let's play series together. I think that'd be really cool.
If we
Because
can
I've wanted
technically do
to.
it, I'm down.
Yeah, I don't know if it's possible, but I've always wanted to do that, especially with retro gaming, because you don't really see too much retro gaming on Twitch. I mean, sure, there's a section for it, but let's be honest, it's always the Fortnites, the PUBGs, the Apex Legends of the worlds, right? Those battle
Yeah.
royale games have kind of taken the world by storm. Yeah, and but you know what? We don't want to talk about those games right now, because to be honest with you, those games wouldn't exist if it wasn't for games like Turtles in Time, if it
Right.
wasn't for games like GoldenEye, you know.
Mhm.
And I kind of want to ask you, David, what are some of your favorite retro games and why?
That's funny. The GoldenEye thing is that's still considered like one of the like people's favorite first person shooters, right?
It's a
Like
great one.
still to this day.
Did you
And it
ever do the couch play mode? The when you would be able to verse each other? That was
oh
so
yeah, yeah.
intense, man. You
Is
could
that what
get
it's
the
called?
four
Couch play mode?
couch play. Well, I mean, that's what it's called now. Like
Oh,
looking
okay.
back, you know, when you actually interacted with humans in person,
Yeah.
and you kind of had them over on your couch. And I remember the little 4-box screen, and it was so intense.
Yeah.
Like it's all pixelated. You're like, oh, I got you. Like Johnny's
Yeah.
behind you. So many good memories. But yeah, no. What were you saying about GoldenEye, dude? I'm sorry. I just
Oh no.
very
No,
tangential on this one, guys.
no
This
worries.
gets me excited, man. David and I have realized for a while we've been on a similar wavelength. I
Right?
mean, go watch our Chappie watch along from last Friday. But
Yeah.
now it's
Well,
just nice to dive into it, you know?
yeah. So GoldenEye, I mean, I was a huge. First of all, I was a huge fan of the movies, especially the later ones. When I was growing up, I never knew anything about the previous GoldenEyes. I don't even think my dad or anybody watched it really in the house. So I didn't know much about it. It wasn't until later, when I was an adult, where I was like, okay, there is actually a lot of different 007 films rather than other than the Pierce Bronson ones that I grew up on. So GoldenEye was like my first introduction, obviously, for like a first person shooter. I mean, well, that wasn't side scroller, right? I mean, because of course we grew up on like our Contras, where like the Contra was huge part of my living, just growing up. So I don't know if you ever play Contra, Super Contra, things like of
No,
that
I
nature.
don't even know about it. I'm gonna look it up right now.
You probably recognize it from the cover, but very much in the vein of like they came out with all the Alien games on Sega and stuff like that. I
Mhm.
don't know Super Nintendo. Super Nintendo probably had it, but look up Super Contra. They had it on Super Nintendo. Everything Super Nintendo, I always thought was great because it had the word "super" in front of it.
That is
It,
cool.
it,
I
it
don't recognize this cover, David. This is a
no,
little before my time, man. I mean,
interesting.
I think I really started with the games of 1991 onward.
Okay, okay.
I can't think of many of the old 80s games that I would have played, you know? Like another really old one that comes to mind is like that X-Men side scroller fighter game that was very similar to Turtles in Time in its play style.
Mhm.
Like
Okay,
the old arcadey ones though that you would play at the arcade, and then it got a Super Nintendo release. But
let's get
I
into
mean that's
arcade
like
games.
that's the oldest I go, you know what I mean? I've never heard of Contra before, but yeah, what about Contra, dude? Enlighten me.
Well, I was gonna say, I think Super Contra came out in the early '90s. Well, it came out whenever the Super Nintendo console came out, so it was definitely part of their repertoire because it came out obviously previously before, but I think there might have been 2 or 3 like sequels to the original Contra, and then Super Contra took over, and it was just like, man, it was mayhem. But that was such a fun game. I wanted to speak actually about some arcade experiences because throughout my growing up as like from like 8, 9, 10 years old. I remember being at this place. Well, there's a pizza place in Southern California called 88. Okay, that was Super Contra on Super Nintendo.
Yes, if Google's correct.
When did Super Nintendo come out though? Then
Okay, let me look it up. Super
Bec-
Nintendo.
maybe Super Contra was the name on Nintendo because I could have sworn they had a Super Nintendo release, and I thought Super Nintendo came out like in 91, 92.
Yeah, they're trying to sell me that Super Nintendo remake. Did you see that, by the way?
No. Oh, like a
The
mini or
Super,
something?
the NES Classic.
Uh
They're
huh.
trying to sell me that right now, so I can't get any information on Google.
Well,
But
I actually have one of those. A buddy of mine for my last birthday, he got me the Sega Retro console, the little mini one. Oh, it is so fun, by the way. But
oh, that's cool. Yeah. Oh,
yeah, those little retro
1990, November 21st, 1990 is when the Super Nintendo
consoles.
Entertainment System was introduced to the global market.
So then I want to say that, and I don't want to go off on a tangent here. I might have to edit this out, but I wanted to let's see, Super Nintendo
We're not going to
Contra.
edit anything out, David. This is a part of the discussion, man.
Oh,
You
okay,
have to
okay, okay.
dig deep to find these old games, okay? And
Yeah.
someone has to do this research. It can't all be about Fortnite and PUBG and Apex Legends. You know what I mean?
So I was wrong. So it's actually called Contra 3: The Alien Wars, and that's on Super Nintendo, and that came out in 1992. That's the game I'm thinking of. And if you looked it up, Contra 3: The Alien Wars, this cover would have any prepubescent kid just going ape shit.
Okay.
And they even had a game on Game Boy called Operation C, which was also a Contra game. So that's interesting. But
so they
those
kept
were
the title going.
Yeah, they did keep the title going, though the structure, obviously. It's almost like when you play Street Fighter 2 and you're like, hey, what about Street Fighter 1? Like, it's one that's like not talked about, right? So, but I was going to say, like, throughout all my console experiences, I was playing a lot of arcade games. And what I was saying before is that we have this in Southern California, it's still to this day, a pizza place called Topper's Pizza. And when we would go there, it was a typical Friday night thing, or every other Friday night. We would go there and they had arcades, right? And it was always the same games. It was NBA Jam or some kind of basketball game, as well as the Simpsons video game. You remember Simpsons?
Ooh, I do.
Fantastic arcade game.
I wasn't allowed to play it.
Why is that?
I was very little. And my parents had, seen a few episodes of The Simpsons. They didn't know if there was going to be something snuck in there that I shouldn't have seen. But I remember seeing it around, and I played Simpsons pinball. So
that was
hopefully
after my
that
time.
counts for something.
That was after my time. But yeah, I mean, it was a lot of, if you're Bart Simpson, your weapon of choice. Each character got their weapon of choice. So Bart was obviously a skateboard, so he would whack people over the head with the skateboard. I believe Homer had a bowling ball because he was part of that bowling league. Mm-hmm. He would smash people on the head. Lisa had her little jump rope for some reason. I don't even remember that part of the show, but she would whip people with it. Boom, boom, boom.
I just needed a weapon.
And I always thought it was funny. Marge had a vacuum because she was a house mom.
Wow.
She was. It wouldn't
That's the 90s.
Wouldn't translate to nowadays, right? But
no, you cannot make that now.
And then there was always like a car racing game, some kind of car racing game that you could play in arcade mode. That's the best way. I mean, obviously.
I never liked racing games. I really never liked racing games.
There was a couple like Cruising USA that were really big. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones, but there was a lot that came out on consoles as well. Like I'm trying to think of the car ones.
The only ones I really liked were Top Gear, to be honest with you.
Top Gear. I don't think I played that one. Do you remember?
Top Gear went hard, man.
Do you remember Top Gun on Nintendo?
I do not. Was it based off the movie?
Yeah.
Okay. I do not remember that. That was such a cool time where like when video games started to get the movie treatment,
And that's exactly what I wanted to start doing on my channel, is incorporating all the movie to video game adaptations, because like you just said, every single movie was getting a video game adaptation, whether we wanted it or not. And they were so fucking hard. Sorry, I don't know if I can cuss. They were so freaking hard on this, to play on these consoles. And they were just so bizarre. If you want to see the most bizarre video game adaptation, movie to video game adaptation, check out the original Ghostbusters on Nintendo. It has nothing to do with Ghostbusters, by the way.
Okay.
That's what made it very, very weird. And it was like a couple of level selections of just weirdness. But yeah, that was the time to be alive, because whether they were good games or not, you asked for them at Christmas time or birthdays, or if you got good grades, like, hey, can I get the new video game? And that was always.
I did that so much, man. Yeah. Speaking of that, dude, Star Wars did a great job with my generation of sort of always, like, that was in the days that when a Star Wars game came out, you knew it was going to be some heat. Like it wasn't some Battlefront EA bullshit. It was like the real Battlefront. You know what I mean? I know you didn't play those games, but I'm sure you've at least heard of them.
I did play one of the Battlefront games on one of the earliest consoles that it came out. Whatever early console it came out on, that would have been
the Xbox 360, I believe, or maybe even the first one might have even been an Xbox.
I think it might have been Xbox, because we did have that. My brother, of course, had all the. My brother was addicted to Halo to a point where he was like yelling.
Ooh, me too. That is my favorite video game of all time, dude. It is my favorite video game of all time. It is just, I mean, have you ever played the Halo games?
I have not. I watched my brother play it, and I was just like, man, this is a drug. Like, obviously it's a drug. Because he was over 100%. there. with the headset screaming, just like just like raging out on everybody online, and
Yeah,
that's
that's when online really took hold, man. I was
yeah,
so good at that game, David.
yeah.
Like, it's the only video game I've ever been good at competitively, and it sucks that I had like my one shot before Twitch was a thing, because I would have been on there streaming it. It's
Well,
it's
I
okay
can
though.
definitely appreciate your generation's I guess love for the worlds that these new games build, because everything looks visually amazing. I guess from the 80s and 90s we came from a time where it was just more fascinating to being able to control something right on a controller. So I guess visually we didn't really care too much. I mean, children, I think they just want to be entertained, right? That's a huge part of, a lot of the mobile games that people are playing on their phone, the little kids and stuff like that. They're not visually amazing. Some of these games are not. Some are really extensively amazing, like you're playing it on like a video game console. But I think that was the appeal for us back in the days, that it was so new, it was so fresh. But decades later, it's more about the visual. Like I was watching that Giancarlo Esposito trailer for Far Cry 6. Jesus Christ, it looks like a damn movie. Like I think it came out a month ago or so. These look fantastic. Like I can understand the appeal for them, but I just don't feel the need or the urge anymore to want to play something like that. But that's why I keep going back to the retro gaming, whether it's on physical consoles like a mini or like an emulator and stuff like that.
So how often do you game in your day to day?
I mean, like I said, it's all off camera, so it's like once a week. It's not. It's usually when I have downtime. Once again, if no good movies are on, and we had talked about this on my last watch along for Chappie, is that I feel like movies. Well, after the quality of movies, I guess after COVID, post COVID, well, we're still going through it, but they just haven't been hitting me like they have been in the last couple of years.
And I would even say the quality post Chappie. I mean, that film just set the bar so high.
that too. But
no, but I totally know what you mean, man.
yeah,
But if
I
you,
spend a couple of hours or so a week doing it
that's a lot of time though. I mean,
for my schedule. Yeah,
you work, you constantly create content on YouTube. That's a lot of time. So it's interesting to me that you never wanted to jump forward. I mean, we always talk about when we do watch alongs, like especially with Chappie, how visually beautiful it was, how like, amazing like it looked considering the budget and all that stuff. Like those are things we were saying about Chappie the other night. But yet you're in this retro gaming world. So is it more like, okay, I'm off air, I'm relaxing right now, this is my personal time? Is it like more comfort food for you, or do you still play new retro games you haven't played? So are you just like, do you enjoy that aesthetic? Do you know what I'm asking? Like, do you just
yeah.
replay the same Zelda game over and over again, or are you looking for new things? I'm curious
No,
about that.
since I've gotten an emulator, I've gotten it a couple years ago, but I just been adding more and more because I mean, you're just downloading files, to play, right? And there's thousands. I think between Sega and Nintendo, the one I keep Super Nintendo, I'm sorry, I keep going back to. There are thousands of titles that you can go through, and these are games that I was not fortunate enough to have when I was a kid, either because I didn't hear about them, I just didn't get them, I just didn't see them at all. But now that I play them at an older age, obviously I was like, these games are hard. But does that just mean because I'm going into it fresh, or I don't have the mind of a kid? Because I feel like sometimes kids, man, they're just like flying through these games like nothing. So, but I do love experiencing and finding new games, checking them out to their fullest extent, and just working out the kinks, because sometimes in these emulators, man, the button structure is way different. One button A might be to jump, and then in another game it might be to punch. So it's like structuring everything, especially nowadays, is very crucial, especially when you're jumping from console to console. It's a whole different world, but I can understand the appeal why people keep going back to retro games. It's that nostalgic feel. I mean, dude, we see how much like these old games that are getting turned into live action.
I know that guy.
Yeah, we just got the news. That's the 8-bit. That's the 8-bit one, by the way. We just got the news that Mega Man's going to be turned into some kind of live action thing, or a cartoon or something. So it's the appeal of going back to these old IPs and just wanting to bring them either to a newer audience, or maybe Hollywood is just running out of ideas, which I think that's what it kind of is. They're just trying to find the next cute baby Yoda, right, so to speak, and then just sell it. But
yeah, the worst kind of people.
Either way, sign me up though, because I'm a product of that generation, and I love seeing it.
Totally, man. And it's funny you brought up Mega Man. My first real memory of like, wow, I just embarrassed myself comes from Mega Man. I
Really?
think I was about 5 years old. I had to be. My family used to take trips down to Florida. My aunt had just like a summer condo type thing, and she would give us like the keys for a week. And so in there, my older cousins left a Super Nintendo, and they only had a few games that interest me. One of those was Mega Man,
Hmm.
and I remember I got so angry because I couldn't beat one of the levels, and it had to be like a level 1, and I was sitting there for like 2 hours, and I smashed. I think it was the controller, and I think I bent like the cartridge inside. I think I just
Oh
ruined the
wow.
whole thing, and it was
Rage
really
quit.
embarrassing because like this is like almost 10 years after that had come out, the
Yeah.
console, and so was like harder to get, and not my
Yeah.
finest moment, but I learned a good lesson. I also locked myself inside of that room on that trip.
Yeah.
And so my parents spent the day trying to get me out of the door. That was a pivotal trip in sort of learning what life was all about. But yeah, Mega Man
So,
and
yeah,
me haven't really crossed paths since then.
that's interesting. So if you're
Yeah.
playing on Super Nintendo, that must have been Mega Man X or Mega Man X2, which were part of the later ones. Because I mean, the retro ones were all like Mega Man 1. It was weird. It was like Mega Man 1 through 6, I want to say, on Nintendo. Someone quote me in the comments below, or give me the right information. But I'm just going off of memory. I think it was 1 through 6, and then I think Super Nintendo started with like a 7 or 8. Somehow they jumped to Mega Man X, which was 10, and then they did
Mhm.
Mega Man X2, where they started introducing all these new all these new Mega Man characters that were part of like his crew, almost like they did with Sonic and Knuckles, right? Where they're introducing all these new characters alongside Tails and stuff like that. But I was a huge fan of those games. They were extremely repetitive as far as level structure, and then each boss was really really cool, but they over time just got less and less creative, I guess. But they were
Yeah.
fun. They were very very fun games and extremely hard at certain points. So I understand the rage.
You keep kind of talking about like the structures of the levels and all that, and you kind of
Mm,
talking about how it's more about like mastering the mechanics of the older games
yeah.
than it is sort of about like getting the story or the plot points. Although like some of those old games, dude, I mean, Zelda told a good story
Hmm.
for what it was doing and with the limitations it had. I mean, that is a good story, man. I think that's why you had Breath of the Wild be as successful as it was, because it was rooted in such good source material.
Hmm.
There was good writing in some of those games, but like what I'm trying to get at is these older games kind of do have a place nowadays though in modern Twitch, because we're kind of bouncing back and forth, right? We're talking about why we like the old and how it informs the new.
Yeah.
And speedrunning has become a big thing.
Jeez. I don't know how they do it, man. I sometimes I'll watch them and I'll be like, this game I still can't beat, and this person beat it in 2 hours. I'm like, what the hell?
Right. It's because those games are, I think it's the limitations of the mechanics
Mm,
kind of not allowing you to have so many different choices as you would in like an RPG, where you would
yeah.
talk to an NPC and you'd have a few different type of thought lines to go off of, and then what you choose sort of dictates the outcome of the entirety of the rest of the game. We didn't have those kind of games back then where one small decision would completely change your end of the game, as opposed to the person who chose option A over option B sitting on the same couch next to you playing on a different TV. That one
Yeah.
little decision influences the entire outcome of the entire game. Almost like a Bandersnatch. You could watch Bandersnatch Black Mirror
Hmm.
one way, your friend could watch it another. You get a completely different outcome. But back then, you didn't have that capability. It was
Mm,
just interesting to see how there is like and this is why I wanted to start with the retro gaming thing. Like, there is a place for it. I think it's a little unfortunate that it's only for speedrunning. It seems that the mainstream doesn't want to kind of appreciate it as much.
mhm.
They just kind of want to beat it quickly for like a cash prize or something, whatever they do.
That to
But
me, that's not enjoyable. That is not enjoyable if you're just doing that. Like I understand the appeal for it is because these games have marinated so long. So it's like, okay, let's see what someone can do that I can't do, that I've been trying years to do. But I wanted to go back to what you had said about the non-playable characters. Actually, Adventures of Link had a lot of non-playable characters where you would get into situations where I don't know if you played that, where you're going through villages and you're asking women these random questions, and if you don't do them in a series of an actual order, you will get different outcomes, or you will not even get what you need to get. So you have to actually be talking to certain characters that just have, these little bubbles that come up that have the text dialogue. And you have to be kind of very mindful of what they're saying, or follow them, or go into certain, villages and stuff like that, and approach things certain ways to get what you need to get from that village, and then take it to the next level. If you don't, if you
I did not know that. I've never played that game before. So
well, I don't even know about non-playable characters until like 5 years ago. I didn't know what that even was. Like,
yes,
I heard
the internet kind of coined that phrase. I would
Yeah.
say it became like a slang, like, oh, you're just an NPC. I think
Yeah.
it's almost like a diss, and that's kind of like the joke of the show. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But,
which hence like go like back to my movie brain. It is that new movie that's coming out with Ryan Reynolds and Taika Waititi, where there's like non-playable character that wants to break out of that Free Guy movie that's coming out.
I couldn't care any less. I'll watch it, but at this point, like halfway through the CW special of Project Power,
Oh,
I
man.
mean, I'm over new movies right now. I think what you said was right, and I think that's why I'm happy. I can retreat a little easier than like you, Elliot, and some of the other guys we talked to, because I'm already the TV nerd. I just tried movies out.
Yeah.
They're not working for me right now. So I have a little bit of a cop-out to retreat back, but I am not looking forward to that film. Just a little interjection there. But yeah, sorry. What were you saying about that movie?
No worries. But yeah, like that was a term that I did find out about, and I started to think a lot, we kind of had a couple, that I can remember. I'm sure a lot of people that, down below in the comments will start naming a lot of RPG games. I didn't play too many of the RPG games, really. I didn't, not that I didn't find the appeal, but I wanted a little more control. I feel like going from section to section, talking to people, and these basic pause and play games, which are huge within the Pokemon community, right? It's a lot of these battles where it's like, press this button and you throw something, and then you have to wait for the other person to throw. To me, I was like, no, that is not up my alley. That seems too boring. Too
You don't like turn-based, huh?
Whatever that means, I don't know what that means, but I don't like it.
It's like you take turns. You take
No,
turns.
come on. No, I can't do that.
Damn, man.
I'd rather be playing against somebody like in a fighter style game, or playing against the computer, and that's totally fine with me. So like,
So that's where we differ, because I was never the biggest fan of like the Street Fighters, or I probably shouldn't say this, but the Mortal Kombats.
we're getting in the octagon. We're getting in the octagon, man.
We are. I never thought it just never appealed to me. I don't know. I was like, maybe it's because I've always been bad at them, and I will openly admit that, but I just never thought it was like fun. I felt, okay, so it's kind of like my issue with like shows that are procedural, like Law and Order or like NCIS. I want to be invested in something that's going to be continuous, I don't want to just pick up something and put it down and not have my progress be saved. Little video game interjection there. But like, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
I was never a fan of the start and stop motion of it. The only fighting game I really like is Super Smash Brothers.
See, and that's where I phased out of games.
Okay.
It's funny, and my girlfriend's probably gonna hate this because she always hates when I bring up my exes. But I had an ex that was she was obviously a lot younger than me, but she one night we went over and she had what was that even on? What console was that on? That was on GameCube. That was on after that.
N64.
Super Smash. Yeah, so she had an N64. Didn't it come on later consoles as well?
They've done a Super Smash Brothers on every Nintendo console so far.
Okay, so
they're all pretty good. To be honest,
it must have been N64. You guys can see my age there, but yeah, I remember her throwing it on, and she was so into it. I was so not. I was like, why are they zooming out so much when people are fighting? I'm like, I can't focus on this. They're like zooming in and panning across. I'm like, this is not
really? I love the camera movements, man. I think they I think they accent the gameplay in such like a positive way.
To me, it's like, stay on this, we're just going horizontal, man. We're just going 2D horizontal.
I do not like the 2D horizontal, man. I'm not a fan of that.
Even when it came to the later, like 3D video games, like fighting games like Tekken, I was, besides the graphics, which were terrible, I thought, the 3D style of fighting, I was not a fan of that. There was something about that. It throws your balance off when you're moving forward and back, to me. So I lost almost like my equilibrium a little bit. Like I felt like I was in the game, like losing my equilibrium. So, but going back to that comment, because I'm not going to forget that about the Street Fighter and MK series.
All right.
It's a beloved series still to this day, and I am very impressed of what they're doing with this series, and I can't wait to see the movie. But that was a game, one of the first games that besides Sonic the Hedgehog, that I got on Sega Genesis, and I absolutely loved it. And there was a huge war, I'm sure you're aware of, between Super Nintendo and Sega at the time, where they had a huge feud that was going on with an advertisement level, where they were actually like, Sega does what Nintendo don't. Like, I don't know if you remember that at all.
Really?
Look
I
it
do
up.
not.
They
That's
had commercials.
wild.
So they would
That's really cool.
They would call Nintendo don't. That's what they would call them.
Oh my God.
Because the huge jump was that Sega Genesis was the first to implicate 16-bit over Nintendo's 8-bit. So Sega was putting that out before Super Nintendo, but Super Nintendo was already in the works. It's just that Sega got to the market first with as far as like selling it. So
right.
I was blown away when everybody was waiting for the Super Nintendo, because I had a cousin that had Super Nintendo. So I'd go to his house on the weekends, play Super Nintendo. Then I would come back home and play Sega Genesis. And it was always this feud that would go on the playground. Even the color of the consoles were different.
The playground.
Man. Sega had this black matte finish, I think with some gray. Super Nintendo had the more grays and lighter color whites and stuff like that. Had the purple buttons. You remember that? The start and stop.
I do. That's the controller I broke.
Yeah.
That is the controller I broke. You know what? I may have to switch the controller logo, man. I may have to go with that controller for the logo of the show. It's still in beta testing in a sense, so that might not be a bad thing. But dude, that's awesome. So funny, man.
Playground talk.
Where do you fall on that dispute?
Oh, I would
like draw your line in the sand, man.
Oh, I was a huge I was a fan of both, but obviously, I play more at home every day after school. After, of course, my homework, I had to get it done. But I would always run to my Sega console. It was my first love, even over Nintendo, because I think I was too young to understand everything 100% fully when I was playing Nintendo, because I was almost forced into it by my dad. So I was just, I didn't know really the backstories and stuff. And you can argue too that a lot of those, they had a lot of cutscenes in some of the Nintendo games, even like in Super Punch Out. I'm sorry, not Super Punch Out was in Super Nintendo, but in Mike Tyson's Punch Out, that had cutaway scenes. Do you remember that?
I don't even know that game existed.
Look that up.
That sounds hilarious.
Mike Tyson's Punch Out. It had like a cutscene where when you would defeat one guy, it would show like your, and it looked like Carl Winslow from Family Matters. I don't know if you know that guy.
Yeah, I know about Carl Winslow, man.
It looked like him, and he was in your corner, and he was your ref, and he was over there massaging you like, you got this, man. You're gonna get ready for the next fight. And it would show you training, like you'd be running like on the street, like Rocky, like da, 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 da,
That's great.
So
oh my
those
God.
were cutscenes. Those were considered our cutscenes of back then. He had a storyline going on. So even in a boxing game, they implemented a story. So I thought that was really interesting. But Sega Genesis was my ultimate console. I will forever love it. I will definitely agree, though, till the death of me, Sega did not have the best games. So like now, how you have Xbox, what are we at now? Xbox
One and PlayStation 4, but we're about to hit 5th gen. So
okay, I thought Xbox was called something else, Xbox X1 or something, or something.
That's what's coming. Yeah.
Okay.
On the horizon.
So just the current Xbox and Sony situation of PlayStation, that's kind of the feud where you have the exclusives on one console, like Xbox has their exclusives, right? Which I think are very cool, because everyone seems to knock Xbox even currently. And PS has their exclusives as well.
How much do you know about the 4th generation of Xbox originals?
Nothing at all. I just know what I've seen, and it usually, Xbox exclusive or, PlayStation exclusive. And I just think they both look visually good. I don't know the kinks of everything as far as like the quirks of some are crappier than others as far as the playthrough. So, I mean, maybe you can educate me on that.
Yeah, all Xbox really has right now on PlayStation, and I'm an Xbox guy, just so everyone knows. I've been a loyal customer for 13 years, okay? Been all about Xbox. I always said, man, PlayStation can go take a hike, because Xbox has always been the more competitive side of gaming, They've always had the games that had the more online scopes, like the Halo, which had a huge online community, like versing other people and whatnot. But Xbox, for some reason, they still had their originals, sure, throughout the Xbox One series, but they were few and far between. And when they were there, they did not really resonate. And Sony, though, on the other hand, like, they have so many games that they brought to the table, like Horizon Zero Dawn and The Last of Us, to name a few, that have become these games that, like, I mean, Last of Us is getting a television show. So
yeah,
Xbox, I think the only thing they really have going for them is that they have a very solid internet connection. Gaming sphere that we're in, with the Fortnites, the PUBGs, the Apex Legends of the world, right?
Yeah.
You really need that. I know a lot of people on PlayStation who really play those kind of games, who aren't too into the story-based RPG style games, the games where you might encounter an NPC. They just want to play their Fortnite, their PUBG, their Apex Legends. They kind of switch over to Xbox for the stronger internet connection.
Yeah.
But that's only a quarter of the market. A lot of people still want, campaigns and story modes in their games, and Xbox doesn't really offer that. So I really think Microsoft is going to have to, and they say they're going back to this. They say that they're going to be going back to the Xbox exclusives, that they recognize what they kind of did wrong in this past generation, and that they plan to fully right the ship, because we had a lot of solid Xbox exclusives when I was a little kid growing up. I'll just name two that come to mind right now. Gears of War and Halo, some of the most talked about games of all time.
I remember seeing Gears of War and just thinking how cool it looked, and seeing all the gameplay, and I was like, whoa, like this is next level. You know?
Those games also had an online arena as well, which also garnered popularity, not as much as Halo in regards to Gears of War, but Gears of War multiplayer went hard. And it caught a little steam in the YouTube community in the early YouTube days for like gameplay and like, 1v1ing and all that type of stuff. So Xbox has got to fix that. But back in this retro realm, when you wanted to 1v1 someone, you had to meet up at the arcade or sit on someone's couch. You know what I mean? So it's nice to look back and see how simple times were. But also, I think to get a little cultural with it, right? And sort of observe, like my little cousin right now, he's 5, and he told me he was hanging out with his friends the other day when I was talking to him, and I was like, really, during this COVID? He goes, well, we hang out the same way we did before the COVID, Christian. And I was like, okay, what's that? And he's like, on Roblox.
Okay.
They're not meeting up in person, man.
That's a bit scary to me. I mean,
you know what I'm saying?
It just gives you a different perspective on life, because I think I talked about this on a live stream before, or maybe not, but with some people in the cinephile community, is that one of my jobs years ago, like 7-8 years ago, was working with kids. So I was working with kids for about 4 years, and I got to see a lot of the computer games that they were playing, and Roblox was one of them. And this was the birth of not birth, but around the time that all that stuff was going on. They were also playing a lot of Flash-based games on these websites and stuff like that, which I also played too. I don't know if you remember a lot of the Flash-based games.
I do. What ones did you play?
Oh God, I didn't. I just played a bunch of random ones, but I'm trying to think of the website, because there was a main website where they would have so many, and some were really bad, some were really good, but.
I'm confused. There's a website that comes to mind, but I don't want to say it because I can't tell if it was also one of those like sketchy, weird video aggregator sites that used to exist, where like Numa Man lived, but also some like really weird stuff of the early internet. So I don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a lot of
I'll
weird
type
stuff
it to you in the private chat right now, and you can tell me if that's the if that's the gaming one.
Yeah, man, that was.
But that's not the sketchy one, right?
I think they also did have Flash-based like videos that people were putting together, and they were really weird. But also, I went back.
So it was Newgrounds.com for everyone wondering. That's Newgrounds.com.
And I think I think even on those sites, like it might not be Newgrounds, but like something similar. They have these games where it's like it's almost like playing Operation with like the girl from Frozen. Have you seen that? Where like you're taking out her body parts, taking out her teeth. I'm like, what the hell? First of all, how can you even get license for these properties? It was like the Elsa from Frozen, and I'm like, there's no way that Disney approved this.
That is really weird,
It is
man.
so weird.
There's no way that Disney approved that, man.
No way, man. But
Jesus.
but I was a huge fan of those flash based games when I was younger. Like I said, a lot of the kids that I was taking care of at the time were playing that, as well as that was like the talk of Roblox, and they were like, "Hey, David, like, have you ever seen this?" And I think this might have been before Fortnite and PUBG and all that stuff. So I think they have been going on for, I don't know the birth of Roblox, but it was around that time because the kids were talking about it. I had no clue about it, but it was after I left that job that I found out that that was a huge community.
Yeah, man. I used to play this stick figure battle arena game, which was like you played as these stick figures to pick up weapons, and then it would just be like a fight to 25 kills, which in a sense is kind of like how these battle royale games start. They drop you in with nothing and you have to armor up and kit up and then just go at it. Yeah. And I was addicted to that game, dude. Also, do you remember Bloons Tower Defense?
No.
Did you play those?
No.
Okay, Bloons Tower Defense. I was big into tower defense games, and there's I actually have the mobile app. I don't want to put it up on the screen for fear of copyright thing, but Bloons Tower Defense 5 is what I have on the mobile app. But it started off with just Bloons Tower Defense, and that was a Newgrounds game. I spent a lot of time playing it. I really loved it. It was awesome. Newgrounds was one of those dangerous sites, though, people, where you click the wrong way and you're on something you can never unsee.
Oh, okay,
and,
I'm
that was when the
right
internet was a little deregulated, wasn't it? And David, you could probably speak to that a little better than myself. You probably had a little more experience with it. But like, how has I mean,
most definitely.
I don't want to break off into too much of a tangent, but at this point, I got to ask, like, how has the internet kind of changed in regards to all this type of stuff?
Well, real quick, going back to that balloon tower defense, that reminds me of I'm looking at these pictures are funny. It reminds me of Bomberman. Do you remember Bomberman?
I do not, but I've always heard of it. Let me look it up real quick.
They had
what about Bomberman?
They had Bomberman 64. It looks like it looks the exact same playing field where you're on a bunch of these block areas.
Dude, I loved this game.
You were kicking back and forth.
I loved this game. Oh my God, I forgot about this.
So fun. It is so fun.
Holy shit, dude. We got to play some Bomberman on an emulator.
I am down.
Wow, David.
That one would start feuds with family members, man. I'll tell you that.
Dude, I remember playing that with man. Oh my God. I remember playing this with my dad and my sister. Wow.
So they had that, I think, on Super Nintendo, I think is when they first introduced it. I don't think they had it on Nintendo. But then they also had the N64 game, and I'm sure on emulators. I mean, on phone devices as well.
That character is so cool looking.
He's iconic.
He is so cool looking.
Yeah, very
wow.
Very cool.
That dude, you just took me back, man. Holy shit! Like my eyes are tearing up right now. Like it's not crying. It's just like the reaction I got, man. Wow, that was.
It's good.
I forgot all about that game.
And
we're gonna have to do another one of these retro throwback episodes, man, because this really was a trip down memory lane. This is.
Oh, I'm totally down, man. But I mean, as far as the nature of and that's something that when you were bringing up Gears of War, Halo, and whatnot, is that even like GTA and stuff like that, which are revered series amongst the new generation, is that games are violent, obviously, but they're way more violent than they were back in the day. Because little things like even with Contra, I mean, you're dealing with nature of like almost like a John Rambo, where you're running around with machine guns and you're shooting people. Sure, they had backstories of like they're soldiers, right? But to even have a gun in your hand was a thing that was like a no-no amongst a lot of parents, and they would not buy these games for their children, and they didn't want their kids to be around anybody, the neighbors, your friends, or anybody that had these games. So when Mortal Kombat came out, going back to Mortal Kombat, that was a big deal because I don't know if you remember when Mortal Kombat first came out on Super Nintendo, they did not unlock the blood feature. So when you were punching people, there was no blood that came out. You needed like some kind of code or something. No, I'm sorry. They did not have it at all. Sega, when they came out with theirs, they locked the blood, but there was a special code you could put in to unlock it, and that's what the kids wanted to see. All the fatalities, all of that stuff. And dude, it was a good time to be alive, I'll tell you that. We're
going to have to do a whole episode about cheat codes.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot all about cheat code culture.
Bro, I had Game Genie. You remember Game Genie? You probably don't. Look up Game Genie.
I don't remember that. You remember Game Shark?
That sounds familiar, but was that like
It was a Game Boy type thing that you would
okay?
type in, and you would be able to get all the codes. I used it for Pokemon a lot. I loved
So
Pokemon, but I also was like, I didn't want to grind all the Pokemon up all the time to
yeah,
level
no,
99 by
yeah,
like
most definitely.
pure
But
willpower. I do not remember Game Genie. This is a little before my time.
so Game Genie was an
Looks
actual
wild though.
attachment that you would put on the cartridge, and it would give you the codes.
Oh wow, this is so funny, man.
Yeah.
This is hilarious.
Real quick before I
Box,
forget,
the packaging.
big
Yeah,
shout out,
sorry, go for it.
big shout out to the Angry Video Game Nerd. If you have not checked out his channel, the Angry Video Game Nerd, he's in his 40s. He will break down everything nostalgic as far as retro gaming goes, everything before N64. I think he even plays current games, but he's someone in his 40s. He has a man cave to the T of retro gaming, but he goes over all the accessories as well. Yeah, big shout out to Video Game Nerd, AVG,
AVGN.
yeah, AVGN, sorry. And I was thinking of Alien vs. Predator for a second. But yeah, he does a good job of breaking down all the attachments as well with the video games. So he has, I don't know if you remember on Super Nintendo, they had a scope. You would put it on your shoulder and you could shoot like a RPG. You could shoot that. You could shoot they had the gun, of course, from Duck Hunt. They had the glove, the power glove. Do you remember the power glove? Please tell me you remember the power glove.
I don't, man. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Look that up right now. They made
Sorry.
a freaking movie about it. They made a movie about it with Fred
Power
Savage.
Glove, man.
Look up Nintendo's Power Glove. They made a movie.
Glove.
They made a movie called The Wizard.
What?
About
This looks wild. I've never seen this before.
so
This looks absolutely wild.
I grew up in a middle class family, and we couldn't even afford the Power Glove. I grew up, that's how crazy it got with these attachments, man. I don't even know anybody that had one. I really don't even know anybody that had one. But it was a controller that you would fully engulf your arm in, basically. There you go.
There we go, man. The Power Glove.
Why do they have Trump up there? That's weird. You be doing mind control with the Power Glove?
What is that all about? Let's see what that's all about. Trump proposes replacing complex airplane control.
What, with the Power Glove? That's weird.
Okay, this is a fake article. There's no way that's real. Oh my God. Let's get Trump out of there. But
Power Glove was intense, man. That there it is. Has a controller.
Look at that thing, man.
It was overkill. And if you could look up, since you have the screen sharing, if you could.
Yeah. I don't know why I didn't do that earlier. I was just enjoying myself.
That's the movie. That's the movie, The Wizard, right there, on the left side. That's Fred Savage, and it was
Google Play. Can't be doing that.
Okay, so that was a movie they based it on. And actually, while we're on the topic of Wizard, I wanted to jump to one of my favorite games of all time on Super Nintendo. A game that on regular Nintendo, that I almost got a tattoo on my white arm right now. It's really white because I got a farmer's tan, but on my whole arm right here, upper arm, I was gonna get a tattoo of Super Mario Brothers 3. Okay. If you look up Super Mario Brothers 3, that was the game that changed everything for me. I'm sure you've seen it. It was the one where he had a raccoon tail.
Yes. I remember that.
So this was the game that was featured in the movie The Wizard, and that was before it was even announced by Nintendo. Like, no one knew about Super Mario Brothers 3. So you had to go watch that movie to get a first glimpse of what it would look like gameplay, and it was phenomenal. This game held up the most of my childhood ever.
Was that the Mario movie where they cast the overly Italian dudes to play?
No. That's the live action of Super Mario Brothers.
Oh, okay.
We're talking about that movie.
Gotcha. Hey, man, what would you say if I told you I've played the Mario games, but I'm not really the biggest fan? In fact, 3 might be the only one I actually really like. Aside from that first one, it's so classic, jumping up and pulling the tent pole down. But I just never cared too much about the classic Nintendo characters. Like Zelda, cool, fine, sure. I played Ocarina of Time on the N64, but I can't say I really cared about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I played it because I was little, and I was like, well, I mean, I kind of just really only get the options my parents pull down off the shelves at the store to show me, and that cover looks cool.
What is that Super Pedro 3? Do you see that?
What is going on right now? Wait. Oh my
Oh,
What? No, 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 no. That
oh
is
man,
what the hell is
people
Google
are going too hard.
doing, man? I gotta
Well,
turn screen
look at
sharing
that
off. It's
audience
getting
score though.
dangerous.
They had an audience score of 4.7 out of 5 on the Super Mario Brothers 3. So people like it, man.
Did it? Okay.
Yeah, people really do like that game a lot. I mean, no, I know I hear what you're saying. I think it's a generational thing. I will agree. Super Mario Brothers 1 and 2, and there's a whole, by the way, on a side note, there's a whole podcast we could do about Super Mario Brothers 2 about how it wasn't an initial actual game that they created from scratch. Do you know about that? I
I
can
do.
roughly go over that if you don't if you want.
Yeah, go
So
into it, man. I have no idea about that.
I'll try to do a real quick one. But there's also a channel called the Video Game Historian, which does a beautiful job of breaking down these nostalgias.
Okay.
So the Video Game Historian, where he talks about part 2 of Super Mario Brothers, and it's basically following up the success of Super Mario Brothers 1, how it literally hit Japan like a freaking monsoon. Like it was, everyone was out to have it. As this is before, I think American audiences even got it. But it did so well that they wanted to follow up so quickly. Now, someone on the Nintendo board of working on Super Mario Brothers was like, "I'm working on a separate game," and it was a game that was, I don't want to misquote it, but it was a game that had to do in the Middle East. It was almost like an Aladdin game where you're flying on carpets, right, and stuff like that. But what they did was they took that game that was already developed and they replaced all the sprites with Super Mario characters, and I think there's even a glimpse of like Yoshi in there, like a Yoshi type character, and they put that out as Super Mario Brothers 2. And if you look up Super Mario Brothers 2, it looks nothing like Super Mario Brothers 1 or 3. That's the reason
Interesting.
for the
We can pull that up real quick.
Yeah, if you look up Super Mario Brothers 2 gameplay, like as far as like the stills go,
Yeah, I'm gonna do the stills.
different.
I think you can get away with the stills.
Yeah, that was the game that I had extreme fun with, but it was way different than the first 1 and 3. So I would say maybe as going back to like maybe you're not your appeal of not liking it. I would say probably because you were used to a little more, I guess, in depth with some of these characters. These were just side scroller games. I mean, even the Legend of Zelda one didn't have too many layers to it. I think once you started getting into Ocarina of Time, they started, just building on more on that world. And obviously, it was Nintendo 64, so it was a little more 3D. So it was 3D. So let's see. Okay.
Anything look right here?
The third image is the main screen. There you go. So if you notice there, that looks way different than part 1 and part 2, is because that sprite of them lifting like the radishes, that was completely different. I want to go back and tell you what the origin is of the original game.
Well, we're definitely gonna do more of these.
Have to dive in. Yeah, we're already an hour in. But that one is lifted from another game. They just replaced the sprites.
And this is the first Mario, the classic one.
Yeah.
Bringing that pole down after you complete the level.
Visually looking at it now, there's nothing to marvel at. It looks like the first episode of South Park, right?
Right.
So
I do hear you.
Very, very cut out. And man, look at how far they've traveled. I'm looking at like the new modern one.
And look at 3. 3 is a little bit improvement on the graphics, but it still has very much. I can see that vein of Mario 1 with the color palette, with the shaping and the sprite. Yeah.
So they did take elements of part 2, like with the blocks, how the blocks have shadows. They took that and they implemented it in part 3. So it looks very like, I mean, there's look at the back, like there's bolts on these rectangles. Like, why would it have that? They made it kind of almost like a Toy Story type of world. Yeah. It looks like a very Toy Story video gamey, like these characters that come to life like after you fall asleep, But for some reason, part 3, I think, holds nostalgia in our hearts is because you got to see Mario fly. You're taking Mario to the skies now, which he couldn't do before. So I think it was that cool nature of add-ons, so to speak, is what made it more of a fun game. But yeah, no, I absolutely loved Super Mario Brothers. We didn't even get to talk about some of the games that I wrote down.
We will, man. I think this was a solid first episode, David, and I got to thank you for coming on and chatting video games and all that. This was a lot of fun. That Bomberman thing, man, that took me back. We got our promo clip. That was really cool. Yeah, you know what? next time we'll have to figure out if we can do some gameplay footage. I think people would like to see that, and I would just love to kind of couch play again. Get a little nostalgia in there. Maybe we can get some, I'll pick GoldenEye. I'll throw that one in, and maybe you pick a game. We'll see if we can do that. That'd be pretty cool.
I'm with that, man. I had a fun time talking all this stuff.
Yeah, man. So, again, we always appreciate you having us on your channel, and I appreciate you coming on for the first ever episode of No NPCs Allowed. This means a lot, man. David. And before we let you go here today, why don't you tell the people where they can find you and what you do over on Flix Talk?
Oh, yeah, most definitely, man. So you guys can find me on Instagram at Flix Talk. So it's always FLIX Talk. On Facebook and Twitter, it is at Flix Talk Podcast. So all that information will be down below, guys. Once again, you can click that in the description. And yeah, just follow me on there. I like to post a lot of movie news, a lot of movie reviews, out and about. I do a lot of watch-alongs weekly, if not bi-weekly. As well as just doing live random AMAs where that's Ask Me Anything, whether it's movie related or not. Like I said, this kind of sparked up. Maybe I might do a little recording after this episode of some gameplay, of some retro gameplay. Like I said, I usually do it off camera because it's just stuff that I like to do in my downtime when I'm trying to relax, especially since the movies that we're getting recently are not really holding my interest. But if you guys do like a lot of movie reviews and just nostalgia, click down below to send me a subscribe, as well as hitting that bell notification, guys. And I even dive deep into our nostalgia for physical media as well. I just picked up the Casper 25th anniversary on Blu-ray, and it's fantastic. So from 1995, as well as previous, that Clueless that came out in 1995. So I love that they're re-releasing my nostalgia, in better quality. And yeah, I'm gonna have to jump on that, like you said, Steam, and check out what games they have on there and possibly play those as well.
Yeah, man. Alien Isolation. I'm telling you, you'll love it. I'd love to get your thoughts on that. Guys, you know the deal. This has been another Talkin TV Podcast production. And thank you all for being here on the first ever episode of No NPCs Allowed. I had an absolute blast. It was great to sort of chat with David, talk all things retro gaming. And if you came here expecting there not to be tangents, then you must not be familiar with the Talkin TV Podcast network. And that's okay. That's okay if you're not, because we have a lot that we offer. So if gaming isn't your thing, if you stumbled upon this and you're like, I really like Chris, but I'm not the biggest gamer, what else do they do? Well, let me tell you. We do movie reviews, TV reviews, live streams, live watch-alongs, and a plethora of other things. All you got to do to stay on top of that is click the subscribe button, smash that like button, and turn on that notification bell. That'd be very much so appreciated and would help us keep doing what we do, and also help you never miss a beat. This was a blast, man. I had a great time. Video games are something that I've always really loved, and I've always seen the cinema behind them. It's another visual medium, so obviously there's inspiration there and things that those creators draw on, same as the creators, the early days of film drew from theater. So that's the point of the show, is to sort of traverse how all these entertainment mediums do cross over, and also just like kind of nerd out over things like Bomberman that we had forgotten ever existed. So again, if you liked what we did here today, we have weekly content on our channel. That's every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Please subscribe, smash that like button, turn on that bell for notifications, and follow us at Talkin TV Podcast anywhere that matters. Oh, we did it, David. That was a good one.
We got it, man.
I appreciate it, guys. And stay safe.